Hello everyone, have you ever caught yourself wondering why, despite years of commitment and countless shared memories, some married women seem to seek something elsewhere? Maybe it's a whisper you've heard in hushed conversations, or a gut feeling that something is missing, a craving for adventure beyond the walls of what you thought was unbreakable. It's a question that stirs discomfort, confusion, even fear, because it challenges the very foundation of trust and love we build in marriage. But what if I told you that this isn't simply about betrayal or dissatisfaction, that what drives some women to look outside their marriage is far more complex, deeply human, and often misunderstood? There's a hidden story beneath the surface, a truth that many avoid facing. It's about longing, the kind that doesn't always show up in grand gestures or late-night confessions, but whispers in the quiet spaces between routine and familiarity. It's about how the need for connection, excitement, and self-discovery can sometimes lead a woman down unexpected paths. And it's about the ways marriage, with all its promises and pressures, can sometimes fall short of fulfilling the deeper yearnings of the heart. In this conversation, we will peel back the layers of this delicate, often taboo subject. We'll explore why the search for adventure outside marriage happens, not to accuse or shame, but to understand and heal. We'll uncover the emotional landscapes women navigate, the silent struggles they face, and what men can learn to nurture a bond that's not just about duty, but about passion and growth. Because the shocking truth isn't just about what women seek, it's about what we all need to feel alive, loved, and truly seen. So, let's begin this journey together, with open hearts and curious minds, as we explore the unspoken realities behind why married women sometimes look for adventures beyond the home. Have you ever noticed how something can quietly shift in a marriage? The way conversations become shorter, the way shared laughter grows more rare, or how the excitement you once felt together feels more like a distant memory? Maybe you've seen it in your own life, or in someone close to you, a woman who, despite years of marriage, starts looking beyond the familiar, searching for something more. It's not easy to talk about. It stirs up questions, doubts, even fears. Why does this happen? Why do some women look for adventures outside the marriage? Before we rush to judgment, I want you to pause and really consider the human side of this story. Marriage is often painted as this perfect union of two souls who fulfill each other completely. But the truth is far messier, far more fragile. At its core, marriage asks us to settle into a shared routine, to merge our desires and dreams, and to keep rediscovering one another in ways that don't always come naturally over time. Sometimes this beautiful structure can feel confining, even suffocating. For many women, marriage is just one part of their identity, not the whole story. They want to be mothers, partners, friends, but also individuals with passions, desires, and a sense of freedom. When these parts of themselves start to feel ignored or diminished, when the spark dims and the day-to-day becomes predictable, a restlessness can grow. This restlessness isn't about betraying the marriage. It's about a deep yearning to feel alive, to feel desired, to feel seen, not just as a wife or mother, but as a woman with a vibrant inner world. And so the search begins. Sometimes it's a subtle curiosity, a spark of excitement ignited by a new friendship or a fleeting glance. Other times, it's a more deliberate quest for passion, novelty, or affirmation. But underlying all of this is a universal truth, the craving for connection and meaning that marriage alone, in its routine form, sometimes struggles to provide. This isn't about placing blame on anyone. It's about understanding the complex emotional needs that we all have, especially within long-term relationships. Women, like men, want to feel desired and appreciated. They want to feel that their identity isn't swallowed whole by the roles they play. And when these needs are unmet, when emotional intimacy fades, when desire cools, it's natural to look elsewhere, not necessarily to end a marriage, but to fill a gap that feels unbearable. What's important here is recognizing that the adventure women seek outside marriage often symbolizes more than just physical or romantic escape. It can be about reclaiming parts of themselves that feel lost, about breaking free from monotony, or about rediscovering joy and passion in a way that their everyday life no longer allows. This leads us to a crucial understanding: relationships, especially marriages, aren't static. They are living, evolving entities that require attention, curiosity, and sometimes reinvention. Without this, the space between two people can grow so wide that one or both begin looking for that spark elsewhere. So, what exactly drives a woman to seek this adventure outside the marriage? It's rarely a single cause or a simple story. It's a blend of emotions, experiences, and unmet needs. It could be loneliness disguised behind the busy days and family demands. It could be a feeling of invisibility when her partner no longer looks at her with the same hunger or admiration. It might be an unmet desire for emotional depth, where the conversations have stopped flowing and the shared dreams have faded. Or perhaps it's a craving for excitement, a hunger for a fresh sense of self that the marriage no longer feeds. But here's the paradox: often, these adventures aren't about ending the marriage or disrespecting the bond. Many women don't want to lose what they have. They want to feel alive within it. They want to find their way back to themselves, to their desires, to that spark that sometimes dims under the weight of responsibility and routine. Understanding this is the first step for anyone feeling the shock or confusion of a partner seeking something outside the marriage. It invites us to look inward, to ask what parts of the relationship might need nurturing, and how we might hold space for growth, change, and desire without fear or judgment. We'll explore this deeply. We'll talk about the emotional hunger that drives this search, how societal expectations shape the experiences of women, and how the changing dynamics of marriage today create new challenges and opportunities for connection. But it's not just about pointing out what's missing, it's also about what can be done. How can couples rebuild the excitement? How can they rediscover intimacy, not just physically but emotionally and intellectually? How can a man understand these needs without feeling threatened? And how can both partners create a space where adventure exists within the marriage itself? These are difficult conversations, but they're necessary, because the reality is, ignoring these deeper yearnings only makes the distance grow, and yet with attention and care, the marriage can transform from a place of stagnation to one of vibrant connection. So, let's start by looking at some of the first reasons why this search for adventure begins. Those early emotional shifts that often go unnoticed but set the stage for the journey outside the marriage. It begins often with the feeling of invisibility. When the woman you married feels unseen, not just physically but emotionally and psychologically, it can create a quiet pain that grows over time. Imagine for a moment the woman who pours herself into her family, her work, her responsibilities. She wakes up early, prepares meals, manages schedules, keeps the household running, and in doing so, her own needs slowly slip to the bottom of the list. The compliments, the affection, the simple acknowledgement of her existence fade into the background. She feels like a fixture in the home rather than a vibrant person with dreams and desires. This invisibility chips away at her confidence and her sense of self. And it's not that her partner doesn't love her. It's often that the daily grind makes it hard to see each other in all our fullness. When intimacy becomes synonymous only with physical acts, without the nourishment of emotional connection, the bond can weaken. That's when curiosity and desire start to wander, seeking what feels missing. Another key piece is desire itself. Sexual desire, yes, but also the desire for novelty and excitement. We live in a culture that glorifies youth and passion, yet the reality of marriage, especially long-term marriage, often feels like the opposite: routine, predictability, sometimes boredom. But desire isn't just a switch that flips on and off. It's a living, breathing thing that needs to be tended to, that craves surprise and attention. When that desire is unfulfilled, when the relationship feels safe but dull, it's natural for a woman to look for the thrill that's gone missing. This isn't necessarily a critique of the partner, but a reflection of human needs that are often unmet in long-term commitments. The adventure sought outside can sometimes feel like reclaiming lost youth or freedom, a momentary escape from the role of caregiver, partner, or parent. Lastly, there's the emotional hunger for validation and connection. Women, like men, want to feel valued, not just for what they do but for who they are. When the partnership no longer offers that affirmation, when conversations turn transactional, or when conflicts go unresolved, it leaves a void. And this void can be filled by attention from others who see her, who listen, who desire in ways she craves. All of these factors intertwine to create a complex emotional landscape. It's never just about the other person or about dissatisfaction alone. It's about a search for self, for meaning, for connection. As we move forward, we'll delve deeper into these dynamics, uncovering what lies beneath the surface and how understanding this truth can help couples not only survive but thrive. So, as we continue to peel back the layers of this complex emotional journey, it's important to recognize that the search for adventure outside the marriage often begins not as a grand rebellion, but as a quiet whisper, a subtle invitation to rediscover something that feels lost. It's rarely a sudden decision. More often, it's a slow awakening to unmet needs and buried desires. One of the most powerful forces driving this is the feeling of emotional isolation. Picture this. Two people sharing the same space, yet feeling miles apart. The silence between them isn't peaceful. It's heavy. Conversations grow shorter or turn into arguments. The easy laughter fades. Instead of being a refuge, the home starts to feel like a place where one feels alone. Emotional isolation is painful because humans crave connection at a profound level. Women especially are often socialized to seek emotional intimacy, to be heard, understood, and validated. When their partner becomes emotionally distant, even unintentionally, it can create a deep sense of loneliness. This loneliness isn't just about physical presence, it's about the absence of emotional attunement. The feeling that what's inside her heart isn't mirrored or acknowledged. This loneliness can breed a kind of desperation, not necessarily for another relationship, but for emotional survival. Sometimes this leads to seeking someone who listens differently, who responds with curiosity and care. It's not that the marriage failed, but that a vital ingredient has been missing for too long. Another important factor is the way societal and cultural expectations shape women's experiences. For generations, women have been expected to be the caregivers, the emotional anchors of the family. Their needs often come second, their desires sidelined in service of others. This selflessness is noble, but it can also leave a woman feeling depleted, unfulfilled, and craving recognition beyond her roles. In today's world, many women are reclaiming their identities beyond marriage and motherhood. They want to explore who they are, what excites them, and what makes them feel alive. But this journey can be difficult if the marriage doesn't provide room for growth or if it feels restrictive. This tension between societal expectations and personal desires creates a fertile ground for seeking adventure outside. It's not always about escape, it's often about expansion, about trying on new roles and rediscovering parts of herself that feel stifled. This leads us to the next layer, the craving for novelty and excitement. Routine can be the enemy of desire. When every day looks the same, when predictability replaces surprise, the passion that once burned bright can smolder into embers. It's normal for humans to seek newness. It keeps the mind engaged and the heart racing. For many women, marriage offers safety and stability, but sometimes at the cost of excitement. When the relationship feels too comfortable, too settled, the urge to seek something different can arise, not because the marriage lacks love, but because it lacks vitality. It's important to understand that this craving for novelty isn't a moral failing or a sign that the woman doesn't love her partner. It's a natural human impulse. Adventure, in this sense, represents life, energy, and the unknown, the very things that remind us we are alive. Some women look for this adventure in friendships, creative pursuits, travel, or new experiences. Others may find it in romantic or physical encounters outside marriage. The form it takes varies, but the underlying desire is the same: to reconnect with a sense of aliveness and possibility. And here, the role of desire becomes even more nuanced. Sexual desire isn't just about physical pleasure. It's deeply connected to emotional connection, self-esteem, and feeling desired. When desire diminishes within a marriage, it can be confusing and painful for both partners. Often men feel rejected or inadequate when their wife's desire fades. But the truth is that desire is complex and influenced by many factors: stress, fatigue, hormonal changes, emotional safety, and the quality of the relationship itself. For women, desire often requires feeling emotionally safe and valued first. Without this foundation, physical intimacy can feel mechanical or even threatening. When desire is unmet, women may seek affirmation of their attractiveness and vitality elsewhere, not to hurt their partner, but to heal their own sense of self. This dynamic creates a challenging paradox. The very need for connection and desire that marriage promises can sometimes feel impossible to achieve within its structure, prompting the search for these feelings outside the relationship. But what about the role of communication in all this? Often the cracks begin with what's left unsaid. When women don't feel safe expressing their needs, fears, or frustrations, those feelings simmer below the surface. They may fear judgment, rejection, or conflict. This silence can lead to emotional distance. The more needs go unspoken, the wider the gap between partners grows. And when women don't share their inner world, their longing for adventure or connection can become a secret they carry alone. Here's where we see the heartbreaking truth. The adventure outside marriage isn't always about someone else. It's often about the parts of herself she can't express at home. If she feels she can't be honest about her desires, her disappointments, or her dreams, she may seek a space where she can be seen and heard, even if that space is outside the marriage. This is why creating a safe environment for open, non-judgmental communication is so vital. When both partners can talk openly about their needs and fears, they can find new ways to connect and renew desire. Now, it's important to say that this journey is not about blaming either partner. The search for adventure outside marriage reflects the shared challenge of maintaining passion and connection over time. It also reminds us that marriage isn't the end of personal growth, but a dynamic relationship that must evolve with each person's changing needs. So how can couples begin to bridge this gap? One way is by embracing curiosity instead of suspicion. When a partner senses restlessness, the impulse might be to accuse or shut down, but curiosity opens the door to understanding. Asking gentle questions like, "What are you longing for?" or "How can I support you better?" can transform tension into connection. Another vital step is to rekindle emotional intimacy by spending quality time together, not as partners who live under the same roof, but as curious lovers exploring each other's inner worlds. This means putting away distractions, listening deeply, and sharing honestly without fear of judgment. Physical intimacy is a crucial part of this, but it's often the emotional closeness that fuels desire. Small acts of appreciation, affectionate touch, and verbal affirmation can reignite the spark. Lastly, couples benefit from allowing space for individual growth. Supporting each other's passions, hobbies, and friendships creates a sense of freedom that paradoxically strengthens the bond. When a woman feels supported in her individuality, she is less likely to seek validation elsewhere because she feels whole and valued within the marriage. This journey of renewal is not always easy, and it requires patience, empathy, and willingness to confront uncomfortable truths. But the reward is a relationship that feels alive, adventurous, and deeply connected. Marriage can be the place where adventure is not something to escape from, but something to cultivate together. So as we continue exploring this topic, Remember that the adventure married women sometimes seek outside is a mirror reflecting unmet needs, desires for connection, and the universal human longing to feel alive and seen. Recognizing this truth opens the door to healing and transformation for both partners. As we continue this delicate conversation, it's important to remember that the reasons women look for adventure outside their marriage are as varied and nuanced as the women themselves. We've talked about emotional isolation, the craving for novelty, and the challenges of communication, but now let's dive deeper into some of the more subtle, often unspoken forces at play. One of these is the profound human need for affirmation, not just as a partner or a caregiver, but as a whole vibrant person. Imagine living years, even decades, in a role that others admire but rarely recognize in its fullness. The woman who is a mother, a professional, a wife often becomes the backbone of the family, but the emotional spotlight can fade. She may feel she is loved for what she does, but not truly seen for who she is. That yearning to be recognized, admired, and desired for her entire being is powerful. When this need goes unmet, it can awaken a longing for that spark elsewhere. It's not always about seeking someone new to love, but about wanting to be acknowledged as captivating, interesting, and alive. Sometimes, an outside relationship or even just flirtation offers a glimpse of that acknowledgement, a validation of identity beyond the daily grind. This brings us to another subtle but significant factor, the tension between freedom and security. Marriage by its nature offers security, stability, partnership, shared history. But freedom, the ability to explore, grow, and evolve, is just as essential for feeling fully alive. Women, like men, need the space to breathe, to reinvent themselves, and to pursue dreams without feeling confined by the expectations of their roles. When the balance between freedom and security tips too far towards security alone, it can feel like a cage. The search for adventure outside marriage can be a way to reclaim that freedom, even if just momentarily. It's a reminder that we are not static beings but dynamic, ever-changing souls who need room to move and express ourselves. This is why so many women resist the idea that seeking adventure is about dissatisfaction alone. It's about the desire to feel vibrant, independent, and alive while still holding on to the deep love and commitment marriage offers. And here we touch on a difficult truth: marriage, especially long-term marriage, can sometimes unintentionally diminish desire. This isn't a failure of love or commitment, but a natural consequence of familiarity and routine. Desire thrives on mystery, novelty, and tension, the very things that tend to disappear in settled relationships. When desire cools, the risk of looking elsewhere increases, not necessarily because the marriage lacks love, but because it lacks that spark of excitement. Understanding this allows couples to shift from blame to compassion. Instead of asking, "Why are you looking outside?" the question becomes, how can we reignite our passion and curiosity within? Another layer to consider is the impact of unresolved conflicts and emotional wounds. When couples carry silent resentments or unhealed pain, it creates emotional distance that is hard to bridge. For some women, the search for adventure outside marriage is a way to escape the heaviness of these unresolved issues, to find lightness and joy that feels absent at home. Healing these wounds requires courage and honesty from both partners. It means facing discomfort and vulnerability to rebuild trust and closeness. It also means learning to listen without judgment and to offer empathy instead of defensiveness. Now I want to acknowledge something crucial. Not all adventures outside marriage lead to betrayal or heartbreak. Sometimes these experiences serve as wake-up calls, moments of clarity that prompt deep reflection and change. They can reveal what's missing and inspire couples to reconnect in meaningful ways. This is why it's essential to approach this topic without shame or condemnation, but with curiosity and a willingness to understand the deeper human needs at play. For the men watching, this can be a challenging conversation. It may stir feelings of jealousy, rejection, or fear of loss. But remember, these feelings often come from love and the desire to protect what matters most. The key is to transform these feelings into constructive energy, a motivation to engage more deeply, to communicate openly, and to nurture the relationship with care and intention. So, how can couples transform this complicated dynamic into an opportunity for growth? First, prioritize emotional presence. It's not enough to be physically there. Emotional availability is what truly sustains intimacy. This means checking in regularly, asking open-ended questions, and creating a space where both partners feel safe to share without fear. Second, cultivate playfulness and spontaneity. Remember those early days of dating where anticipation and excitement fueled connection. Those feelings can be rekindled with small, intentional acts, surprise dates, new experiences together, or simply playful teasing. Third, practice active appreciation. Often partners take each other for granted, focusing on flaws or frustrations. Shifting the focus to gratitude and acknowledgement of each other's efforts and qualities can create a positive emotional bank that strengthens the bond. Fourth, support individual growth. Encourage each other's passions, friendships, and personal goals. When a partner feels supported in being their authentic self, the relationship becomes a place of empowerment rather than limitation. Lastly, Invest in physical intimacy that goes beyond routine. Explore new ways to connect, communicate desires openly, and prioritize moments of closeness without distractions. Physical touch is a powerful language of love and can rebuild desire when nurtured with care. Remember, rebuilding connection and desire is a journey, not a quick fix. It requires patience, empathy, and a commitment to continual growth together. Before we close this part of our conversation, I want to leave you with a powerful reminder. The search for adventure outside marriage is not the end of love. It can be a signal, a message that calls for deeper attention to the relationship's emotional landscape. When approached with openness and compassion, this message can lead to transformation. A marriage that honors both stability and excitement, commitment and freedom, love and desire. Your relationship can become a sanctuary where adventure isn't something to escape from, but something to create together every day. Thank you for being part of this conversation. I invite you to reflect on these truths with kindness and curiosity for yourself, your partner, and your shared journey. As we keep unfolding this delicate topic, there's another dimension that deserves our attention: how the experience of married women seeking adventure outside is shaped by the invisible cultural scripts and social expectations they live within. These are the unspoken rules about what it means to be a good wife, a devoted mother, or a responsible woman, and how these roles sometimes clash with the individual's desire for freedom, passion, and self-expression. For many women, society's message is clear: you must sacrifice your desires for the sake of the family, be the emotional glue that holds everything together, and put others' needs before your own. While this dedication is often heartfelt, it can create a sense of invisibility or erasure of the self. When the daily sacrifices pile up and personal dreams go unspoken, it's natural to feel a growing disconnect from who you truly are. This cultural weight is a silent pressure cooker. On one hand, women want to be loyal and faithful. On the other, they yearn to break free from the confines of prescribed roles. That tension is a fertile ground for longing and exploration outside the marriage. It's important to recognize that this is not about women being ungrateful or disloyal. It's about the profound human need to reconcile the multiple parts of one's identity. To be seen not just as a wife or mother, but as a sensual, curious, creative being with dreams and desires that don't vanish overnight. Now, let's talk about the complexity of desire itself in long-term relationship. Desire is famously mysterious. Sometimes it flares up unexpectedly. Other times it quietly fades. For women, desire is deeply intertwined with emotional safety, respect, and feeling valued on multiple levels. It's rarely just physical. It's intellectual, emotional, and psychological. When any of these dimensions is neglected, desire can diminish. The routine of daily life, fatigue, stress, and unresolved conflicts can all conspire to make intimacy feel like a chore instead of a joy. What's fascinating and often misunderstood is that women can have a strong need for novelty and excitement precisely because desire requires stimulation to thrive. This is where the idea of adventure becomes so compelling. It's a way to reclaim vitality, to spark the imagination, and to remind oneself of being alive in a vibrant, passionate way. Adventure outside marriage may look like a romantic fling, emotional connection with someone new, or even something as simple as reconnecting with parts of oneself that have been dormant. But it's also a signal that the relationship inside the marriage may need new energy and creativity. Another layer here is the concept of forbidden fruit. The very fact that something is off limits can intensify desire. The taboo of seeking adventure outside marriage can make it feel more alluring, more intoxicating. This doesn't mean that infidelity or emotional affairs are justified or inevitable, far from it, but it does highlight how powerful and complicated human desire and curiosity are. And here's a truth many couples overlook: marriages that create space for honest exploration of desire, fantasies, and boundaries often fare better in maintaining passion and trust. This openness allows partners to express needs without shame, to experiment safely, and to navigate the evolving landscape of desire together. This brings us to the crucial role of trust. Trust is the foundation on which marriages rest, but it's not static. It requires ongoing care, transparency, and vulnerability. When women seek adventure outside marriage, it can fracture trust, but it also exposes cracks that were already there, cracks formed by unmet needs, poor communication, or emotional distance. Repairing trust is a delicate process, but it's possible when both partners commit to honesty and healing. And here men can play a powerful role, not just as protectors of the marriage, but as active participants in nurturing desire and emotional intimacy. This means listening deeply without judgment, being willing to explore uncomfortable feelings, and embracing vulnerability as a strength. It also means stepping out of old roles of provider or protector and becoming an emotional partner who supports growth and change. Now, for couples wondering how to navigate these challenges, one of the most important tools is empathy. Empathy allows us to see the relationship through each other's eyes, to understand the pain and longing behind actions that may initially feel hurtful or or confusing. When a husband can empathize with his wife's unmet desires and struggles, it opens the door to healing conversations rather than blame or defensiveness. Another essential ingredient is courage, the courage to face uncomfortable truths, to ask hard questions, and to be willing to change. This courage is what allows couples to break free from stale patterns and to reinvent their relationship as a living, breathing partnership. It's about recognizing that marriage isn't a static contract, but an evolving journey that requires constant attention and care. We must also consider the role of individual healing. Sometimes, the search for adventure outside marriage reflects unresolved personal wounds, past traumas, insecurities, or unfulfilled emotional needs that linger beneath the surface. When these wounds are addressed openly, through therapy, honest communication, or personal growth, individuals can bring more authenticity and presence to the relationship. This healing process benefits both partners and strengthens the marriage's foundation. Lastly, it's important to talk about boundaries. Healthy boundaries create safety and respect within a relationship. Discussing what feels acceptable and what doesn't, what each partner needs to feel secure, and where the lines are drawn is essential. Boundaries aren't about control. They're about mutual respect and understanding. When boundaries are clearly defined and honored, they build trust and reduce the risk of hurtful betrayals. In closing this part of our conversation, I want to remind you that the story of why married women look for adventures outside is not about assigning blame or creating fear. It's about embracing the complexity of love, desire, and human needs. It's about recognizing that marriage, like any deep connection, requires ongoing nurturing of emotional intimacy, curiosity, and freedom. And most importantly, it's about holding space for each other's growth, honoring each other's humanity, and choosing to create adventure and passion, not elsewhere, but together. Thank you for being here and engaging with this vulnerable, important conversation. As we arrive at the final part of our conversation, I want to bring everything together with a hopeful and empowering message. The journey we've explored, the complex reasons why married women sometimes seek adventures outside their marriage, is not a story of doom or failure. Instead, it's an invitation to deeper understanding, growth, and renewed connection. First, let's remember that desire, intimacy, and emotional connection are dynamic and evolving. They aren't fixed states but living processes that require ongoing attention, creativity, and vulnerability. Marriage is not a destination, it's a journey, a dance between stability and freedom, familiarity and novelty. When we see the search for adventure outside marriage through this lens, it becomes less about betrayal and more about a call to awaken something vital within the relationship. For couples who want to nurture this awakening, the work begins with presence. Presence means showing up fully, for your partner, for yourself, and for your shared life. It means listening without distractions, noticing the small signs of need or longing, and responding with empathy and care. Presence is also about vulnerability, the courage to share your desires and dreams even when it feels risky. When both partners create a space where vulnerability is welcomed, it becomes the soil where intimacy grows. Another powerful way to nurture connection is through curiosity. Instead of assuming you know what your partner wants or why they feel restless, ask. Invite open conversations about desires, fears, and fantasies without judgment. This curiosity builds bridges and helps transform distance into closeness. It's also essential to embrace the idea that adventure and passion are not just things you find outside, they are things you create together. Shared experiences, playful exploration, and even moments of surprise can rekindle the excitement that may have dimmed over time. These moments don't have to be grand gestures. Often it's the small things, a spontaneous dance in the kitchen, a new hobby you try together, a heartfelt compliment that reignite desire. Another cornerstone of a thriving relationship is support for individual growth. When both partners are encouraged to pursue their passions, friendships, and personal development, they bring more vitality and authenticity into the marriage. Supporting each other's journeys outside the relationship doesn't weaken the bond, it strengthens it. Because love flourishes most when it is rooted in freedom, respect, and trust. Trust, of course, remains central. If adventure outside the marriage has already caused pain or betrayal, rebuilding trust is possible but requires patience, honesty, and a commitment to healing. This means owning mistakes without defensiveness, forgiving without forgetting, and recommitting to the relationship's growth with renewed dedication. In many ways, trust is a daily practice, cultivated through consistent actions, transparent communication, and kindness. For men watching this, I want to emphasize the importance of shifting perspective from fear and control toward partnership and understanding. When a woman seeks adventure outside marriage, it's not necessarily a rejection of you, but a reflection of unmet needs that both of you can work to address. Your role is to listen deeply, to engage without judgment, and to be willing to evolve alongside your partner. This isn't always easy, but it is profoundly rewarding. It's also vital to remember that the journey toward deeper connection requires self-reflection. Ask yourself, what patterns might I be contributing to that create distance? How can I better show love, appreciation, and desire? What fears might be blocking my willingness to be vulnerable? When both partners engage in dishonest self-inquiry, it transforms the relationship into a space of mutual growth rather than blame. Finally, I want to honor the courage it takes to face these truths. Talking openly about desire, adventure, and the challenges of marriage is not comfortable, but it is necessary. It's in these conversations that relationships find resilience and renewal. So, as we close this chapter, I invite you to embrace the complexity of love and human longing. Know that feeling restless or craving adventure doesn't mean your marriage is doomed. It means it's alive, dynamic, and calling for your attention. Let your curiosity guide you rather than your fears. Choose connection over separation. Create adventure not elsewhere but within your shared life. And above all, hold space for yourself and your partner to grow, change, and rediscover each other again and again. Thank you for sharing this vulnerable, important conversation with me. If this video resonated with you, please share your thoughts or experiences in the comments below. Your stories enrich this community and remind us that none of us are alone in these journeys. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more heartfelt conversations about love, desire, and relationships. Here's to living a life filled with passion, connection, and adventure at every stage, in every chapter.